We are opening the book of Psalms over July and August, and knowing that this was coming up, I started reading the Psalms at the beginning of the year slowly, working my way through the Psalms. And I've got a new translation because I thought I'd change it up. The last 6 years I've been reading the NLT. And so this year, Jared bought me a beautiful new leather-bound Bible, like really nice, and it's the ESV version. And as I'm reading the Psalms over the course of this year already, slowly working my way through, there's this one term that kept coming up, this theme that kept coming up over and over and over again. And it was the term steadfast love. Can you say that with me? Steadfast love. Can you say it again?
Steadfast love.
Okay, now so I can actually hear you.
Steadfast love.
It kept coming up over and over and over again. And so I started just underlining it every time I saw it. Steadfast love. And it was being referred to in so many different ways. The steadfast love of the Lord extends throughout all the earth. And I started to think about that. Is that what I believe is true? Is that the confession of my heart? Is the steadfast love evident in all of the world around me? And then the steadfast love of the Lord upholds generation after generation. And the steadfast love of the Lord chases after the sons and daughters of God. And the steadfast love of the Lord shows mercy in the morning. And the steadfast love of the Lord, and the steadfast love of the Lord, and the steadfast love of the Lord, over and over and over again. And so I thought I would ask Google, the source of all knowledge and wisdom. And Google told me that the term steadfast love is in the Old Testament 196 times. But it's in the Psalms 127 of those 196 times. So I was right. It was coming up a lot in the Psalms, especially in the Psalms. And so if you can imagine me at 5:30, 6 a.m. in the morning with my new leather-bound Bible reading, and I'm reading the Psalms and I'm underlining steadfast love over and over and over. And I started to ask God, what is it actually? What is it you're trying to tell us about your steadfast love? Why is it the most recurring theme I can see in the Psalms? Other than worship and praise and all those things that the Psalms are known for, God, what is it about the steadfast love of the Lord? And I want you to know that over the last 6 months, I've just kind of waited to figure it out. And then I think it was probably Tuesday or Wednesday morning this week, we were staying in a little Airbnb in New Farm with the team. And we were at INC conference, and it was amazing, absolutely amazing. I want you to know we're a part of an incredible movement. And our future, the last 50 years have been phenomenal. The next 50 are going to be even greater.
Yeah.
And I was reading again. And again it happened in Psalm 85, verse 10 and 11. The steadfast love and faithfulness meet. Steadfast love and faithfulness meet. Righteousness and peace kiss each other. Faithfulness, which is married to steadfast love, springs up from the ground, and righteousness looks down from the sky. And so I drew this picture in my journal of a line being the horizon that you and I stand on, and an arrow pointing down and an arrow pointing up. And that the steadfast love and faithfulness of God comes up from the ground, it tells us. It springs up from the ground in verse 11. And righteousness and peace looks down from the sky. And so I've got a little picture of what that looks like, you and I standing in the earth, and God's righteousness looking down on us, and his faithfulness and steadfast love coming up from the earth. And that these two things are coming in on us from different directions. And so I was like, okay, there's just got to be something more in that. And I kept looking at a definition, the definition of steadfast love, things like unconditional love, things like generosity, things like enduring commitment. In a generation where people are allergic to the word commitment, God's saying, I'm committed to you. He's saying, my love is enduring towards you. My love is unconditional towards you. Steadfast love is an unchanging love that reveals the character of God. An unchanging love that it comes up from the ground. And I started to think about this. I started to think about what's the significance of one thing coming up from the ground and the other one looking down on us from the sky. And I was just meditating on this. And we were sitting in conference session and it was the amazing Jeff Woodward who was preaching about wells, and he's like comedic relief as well as like double-edged sword. And he was talking about wells. And he put up this picture of the Australian aquifer, if we can put that up. Do you know what an aquifer is? An aquifer is a body of water that lays beneath several layers in the earth. And it's water that is inside of the rock, in the core of the earth. And it hit me as he was talking about wells. And as I realized that morning that the Lord showed me, that the steadfast love of the Lord comes up from the ground and righteousness looks down from the sky. And what I realized was, do you remember the story of Noah's Ark? You can come with me for a minute? When so much rain came that there was a flood that covered the earth. And the purpose of that rain was to wash sin away. So righteousness came from the sky. I'm like, God, keep coming, keep talking. What is it? He said, go back to Genesis chapter 2. And in Genesis chapter 2, it tells us, for the Lord had not caused it to rain on the earth, but a mist went up from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. So when God created everything, all of creation, there was never any rain. Why? Because his steadfast love watered the earth. The bodies of water in the earth were all that were needed to sustain the earth. When did rain come? It came when sin came, when things needed to be washed clean. But God's original design would be that we were sustained by his steadfast love. And Jeff was talking about digging wells, going deep, because rain is circumstantial, it's seasonal, it's finicky, and it comes and it goes. But aquifers remain. Aquifers are trusted. When you dig a well and you strike living water, it's trusted. Yeah. It is a source that is trusted. And so I started to think about, God, what are you teaching me in the Psalms? And he's saying, Karolina, tell them that they can cry out for rain and be washed every day of the week. But until they realize the steadfast love of the Lord that's meant to sustain them, they're going to need to be washed over and over and over and over again. But it's my steadfast love it won't go away. It is sure. It is foundational. It's what you build your life on. It's what you are sustained by. The more you understand the steadfast love of the Lord for your life, the less rain you're going to need.
Wow.
It's like the more wisdom I have, the fewer miracles I need.
Yeah.
The more wisdom I have, the fewer times I need the Lord to come through and fix up my mess. And it's the same here. The more I can draw on the steadfast love of the Lord, which is foundational, which was the original design, the less I'm going to need the righteousness rain to come and wash me clean and fix everything over and over again. The foundational love of the Lord that is deep. And it was his original intention to sustain life, your life. Yes, there are times where we need to come and be washed clean. But I feel like God is saying to us, while you're crying out for rain, there is water available to sustain you from the depths of my love. And that love actually tells you your identity. That love actually tells you your value. That love actually tells you who he is and who you are in him. That love is what you can build your life on. That love is the foundation you stand on. If I'm constantly, the Bible says, if I look to the clouds, I'm unstable. If I'm needing rain all the time to wash away my situations, I'm unstable. But if I can tap into the aquifer of God's love, his steadfast love, I have a source in and out of season, in drought, in flood, in all sorts of situations. I can stand firm in the steadfast love of the Lord. And finally, at chapter 85, faithfulness and love come up from the ground. Righteousness and peace look down from the sky. We need both, but love and our understanding of his love has to come first. Because righteousness is actually motivated by love. Love is always first. It always comes first. Otherwise, everything else is a Band-Aid solution. It's a Band-Aid solution. And Jesus showed us such immeasurable, unconditional love. The Apostle John in 1 John 4 says, we can love only because he actually loved us first. Everything of value, everything of strength, everything that's solid comes first from a foundation of love. It comes first from a foundation of love. You know, there were 1,600 years between creation and the first drop of rain. Almost 2,000 years that the world was sustained by the water that came up from the earth. That is his perfect design. The only reason rain was needed was because of sin. God's actual plan for you is to be sustained by his steadfast love that comes up from the foundation of who he is. And so rain washes away, but wells sustain. I wonder what it would be like if the church across the world could live from the sustaining well of the steadfast love of the Lord. Jesus met a woman in the book of John by a well. And she had to go to that well every single day. She had to go there every day, and she had to draw water from an earthly well. And she was using that water just to tend to the needs of her life. And Jesus was interacting with her, and he was talking to her about worship. He was talking to her about true worship. And he said to her, if you actually knew who I was, you would be asking me for a drink. And she's like, what are you talking about? You don't even have a bucket to draw from this well. And he said, no, I am the living water. Anyone who drinks the water I give will never thirst again. Will never thirst again. And too many times we're standing out, watching the clouds. Lord, fix my problem. I'm parched dry. And he's like, you have a sustaining, steadfast love. You have a well to draw from. And it shouldn't matter what the clouds are doing, because my steadfast love sustains you in and out of season. The trouble is, we live in a generation with a banner over it that says love is love. No, it's not. God is love. Love is not love. Not in the way the world is saying it. God is love. And to know him is to know love. To know him is to be loved. To know him is to be able to love. Love is not love. God is love. And we live in a world where love is so perverted and twisted and misrepresented that we can come into church, we can come into this this environment and we hear the word love and we actually don't know what it means. Because people who have loved us have hurt us. People who should have protected us have actually hurt us. And so that thwarts and it twists our understanding. So when God says, my steadfast love sustains you, our understanding is completely perverted by what we've experienced in the world. It's like the battered wife who feels like she needs to kick and scream and bite and claw and struggle to survive because she's never been loved. And she lives her whole life trying to make it right, trying to survive because she's never been loved. And God's going, I love you. You don't have to kick and scream and bite and claw and survive. I have a steadfast love that sustains you. It's a story of the pauper who actually started out in a palace, beautiful princess. And through the course of events was lost and ended up on the streets, this young girl, born in a palace, born to royalty, and she ends up in the streets. And for years, she's growing up on the streets and takes on the identity of the streets. And she forgets actually who she is. She loses all memory of what her true identity is. And her family search high and low to find her. And eventually she's found. Someone finds her, they see her in the gutter and they think she resembles the princess. And they bring her into the palace. She comes back in under the covering and she starts to remember who she is. The memories start coming back under what? Under a covering, under love, under protection, under provision. And she remembers who she truly is. Tonight we're going to do some ministry because we live in 2024 and our identity has been stolen from us. Even in the church, we live like the pauper girl in the gutter. And we've forgotten who we are. And we're crying out for rain all the time and God's saying, I've got steadfast love for you. I've got a deep, deep, deep foundation of love for you. So would you stand to your feet tonight with me? The steadfast love of the Lord would sustain us. I want to pray for a few groups of people tonight. And I believe that the Lord by His Spirit will do a great work opening wells in our lives into that aquifer that lays beneath the earth's crust. That map, if we can put it up again. Australia is known as the driest continent on the planet, and yet there are so many liters, 1.7 million square meters of underground water under the driest continent. 1.7 million square meters of underground water. And I picture that. Righteousness and peace look down from the sky. Faithfulness and steadfast love come up from the ground. I want to tap into a source that is unending. I want to build my life on a source that is unending. I want to know that whether it's raining or not, I am watered and I am sustained. Whether it's raining or not, I am clean. Whether it's raining or not, I am not thirsty.
Thanks for joining us online. We pray you were blessed by today's message. If you want prayer for anything, you want to connect with us, or you made a commitment to Jesus today, we'd love to take this from a digital to a personal relationship. So reach out via the link in the description below. Be blessed. We'll see you soon.